Good morning. I'm your host, Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr. Welcome to our live SEC basketball power rankings. We got anchors down and War Eagles in the chats already. We are excited and ready to go to power rank all 16 SEC teams on Monday morning. Gentlemen, what a week of basketball it was. We got one unbeaten team. We got a ton of teams in the chase for the NCAA tournament. Can't wait to get this started, Max Barr.
Yep, and everybody is just as excited as we are, everyone. Yep, look at this. Jacob, first chat, rise and shine. It's time for the live power rankings Monday morning. Nothing better. All right, let's kick it off here at number 16. Now, I think we're going to have some debate already. Now, usually we kind of cruise through. It's been that middle pack that's been holding most of the debate. But we have South Carolina at 16. And I'm not going to lie. Last week's power rankings, we went into them and we had a lot different. I think we're a lot more aligned this week. And Blake's going to give an argument here that I honestly think I support more than my own.
Yeah, so you kind of led into it. We were actually much closer on these power rankings than we've probably been all season. There's not a lot that separated our rankings this week individually to make the composite ranking. However, we did disagree on number 16. This was not unanimous. And I know it's going to be just as simple as saying, well, one team has one win and the other team doesn't have a win. But this is the argument I'm going to make throughout this, okay? These are power rankings for January the 27th. They're not power rankings for a month ago or 2 months ago. So we have to weigh in how a team is playing right now, right? Therefore, I did put Arkansas at number 16 in my rankings this week. Because if you ask me on a neutral court right now, do I trust Arkansas to beat South Carolina or LSU? I can't say that with confidence. I know they beat Georgia, but I'm going to give you my thoughts on Georgia and the good versus great debate that we had on Saturday night here in just a minute. Okay? So I don't think it's wild to put Arkansas at 16 this week. I really don't. And so you can say, well, South Carolina hasn't won a game, but I look at the way the teams are playing, and I'm like, is there that much separation between these two in terms of the full picture? I don't think there is, guys. And so I said, you know what? Our rankings are meaningless. Let me rank the Gamecocks a spot higher this week. So, Max, you tell me what you think.
Well, let's tie in because we're tying it in. Arkansas 15 here in the power rankings. South Carolina 16. I voted it this way. I voted South Carolina 16, Arkansas 15, and I disagree with my vote. Now that I'm looking back at it, I think if these two teams played on a neutral court right now, I'm picking South Carolina to win that game. I think South Carolina's got the more consistent front court presence, and now they got Jamari Thomas back right when Arkansas lost theirs. So I apologize because I disagree with my own vote here. It's my fault.
Now, I know Chris doesn't agree because he's going to go to the computers. I know he is, but I'm watching the games and the computers, I don't care what they say right now. So.
And I don't care about your feelings, Blake Lovell.
Of course you don't. 'Cause you're a robot with the computers, so it really doesn't matter.
No, one team has won a game in the SEC, the other has not. Both have played 4 of their 7 games at home, which makes the start that each team has had a little bit more depressing. I think if you put the teams on a neutral court right now and played them somewhere, Arkansas would probably be a 5 or 6 point favorite. I can't believe we're spending this much time talking about Arkansas and South Carolina.
5 or 6, huh? I completely disagree with that.
Let me find it.
I don't know. I don't care what the computers say. I'm just telling you I would completely
We've
disagree with 5 or
established
6 points. So Arkansas beat Georgia, who we're going to talk about here in a minute. So I get it. One team has another win. And again, we're arguing 15 and 16 here. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that you think that South Carolina, who is sitting here, what was the number we put out, Max? 4 of their last 5 games, Auburn, Florida, Vanderbilt, and Mississippi State, all teams who are going to be ranked in the top 25 this week. They've lost those by a combined 12 points. Meanwhile, I look at some of the results with Arkansas. It ain't been pretty. So That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm not like it's fine. I'm not like hurt over this.
That's
but
fair. I mean, South Carolina.
come on.
If they
We're
could
not
catch
power
a break,
ranking a month ago. We're not power ranking 3 weeks ago. We're power ranking today. And so I just think South Carolina's the better team right now.
Okay. Like if they had Boogie Flan still, I would see. I think this is the first power rankings where I really drew injuries a lot. Well, like I'll talk about injuries a lot with every team. I went through it last night. I think it's 9 teams of the SEC or right now. 9 teams are missing a like major piece. It's over half the league. So there's our welcome in 16-15.
Come on.
We're gonna be
here.
We just spent 5 minutes on South Carolina and Arkansas for last place. What are we doing?
Yep.
We're doing it because it's an interesting discussion. Like, come on here. You're sitting here just knocking South Carolina. They played the most dramatic games of any SEC team this season and have had a chance. And probably if you play those games however many times, they win at least a couple of those. So I'm just saying. Computers.
All right.
Sorry, computers.
The SEC drama power rankings, your Gamecocks are number 1. Are we all happy now?
Look out. The computers don't love them, so we can't either.
Moving on. Right. We are moving on.
For the record, I don't think they're a bad team. It's just someone's got to be there.
Let's just stay here.
The record did not record that. Record didn't record that. Okay, moving on.
No, we're worked up, Tyler. Come on. It's Monday morning. Are you kidding me? Come on. It's Monday. Let's get going here. All right, moving on.
LSU comes in at number 14. They beat Arkansas in their only win. 2 straight road games though. They did have the week off, so that didn't do what they needed it to. They held their own against Alabama, tied at halftime, but they weren't able to steal one, which would have been huge for the Tigers. Now they go and play. Well, they don't go. They host Auburn on Wednesday here. Still going to be probably an underdog by double digits.
Yeah.
Be nice for the Tigers to get back home.
There you have it. LSU, I'm sorry. We're probably not going to spend 5 minutes on you like we did that debate there, but they're better. Yeah, I mean, they played well at Alabama. I think you got to give them some credit. And I said to someone earlier, like they've lost by 8 to Vanderbilt, 11 at Texas A&M, and 7 at Alabama. They're not wins, right? But that's not bad. I mean, they've not played just terrible basketball. They're a player away, and I'll keep saying that until the end of the season. So.
Yeah, and Victorious Miller not being available now to compound that Jalen Reed injury already, not ideal. Moving up, we have the Sooners of Oklahoma. They had a decent week. Well, also had the midweek off, but go to Arkansas and win by 3 after following up the 20-point South Carolina home win. After starting 0-4, they've rattled off 2 in a row. They've done what they had to do the past 2 games to get back on track here, guys.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some ground to make up, like after kind of the 0-4 start, but, beating South Carolina and Arkansas, I guess, this may be what Chris is going to go to here. Oklahoma beat South Carolina by 20. They only beat Arkansas by 3. So if you want to use the comparison game, maybe we should set it at Arkansas minus 17 against South Carolina. But we can't just use that. But no, you're right, Max. I think that's going to be a fun game tomorrow night. We'll do our predictions in a little while at A&M. Yeah. But we remember the last game between those 2 teams. Pretty wild. So, yeah, big week coming up for Oklahoma because they got at A&M, home against Vanderbilt. So 2 pretty big opportunities here for the Sooners before the next week, which no one wants a week like next week at Auburn, home against Tennessee.
I think if you wanted to hold up a team is kind of representative of what this league is. Oklahoma might not be a bad place to go. And this is what I mean. Oklahoma's 2-4 in the league. Outside of the league, it has beaten Michigan, Arizona, Louisville. All those games away from home. Top 50 in the computers, 13 in our power rankings. That is the SEC this year.
Yeah. And I don't think they're a bad team at all. I know a lot of people were getting on them after the 0-4 start, but still beat Michigan. And like, I don't want to go all the way back to those, just go all the way back to like early November, but is Oklahoma, a team where maybe they're on the bubble and they get in, maybe a 9, 10, 11 play-in, something like that, and they do a little bit of damage. And it's like, well, hey, look at their non-conference. No one beat them then. So
yeah,
what, so
they feel like a team headed for Dayton, maybe.
They do. All right, moving on up. Top 12 here now. Georgia. So Oklahoma and Georgia, I think, were separated by 1 vote. We've got Georgia up at 12. Georgia, who I think we had moved all the way up. Man, I don't know what their highest vote was, but they were definitely in the single digits at one point in our power rankings after that run they had, beating Kentucky and Oklahoma. Dropped 4 in a row, though, now, guys. No shame. Tennessee, Auburn, Florida. You do drop that one at Arkansas, but 3 of the top 6 teams in Ken Palm's rankings. That's a tough stretch for Georgia here now. Dropped 4 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it would. There are 5 SEC losses. Yes, 4 of them may come against Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, which are going to be pretty high in our rankings. At Ole Miss, who, we'll see where they wind up. And then at Arkansas. So, but the common theme is very simple. It's just this team just can't score consistently. I mean, 51 points, 56 points, 68 points, 65 points, 59 points in the losses. Now, you can say, sure, some of those are great defensive teams. But I don't, offensively, I think they leave a lot to be desired right now. I don't think they're consistent enough. And even in a game tomorrow night against South Carolina, like, I just want to see something offensively from Georgia. I know they did it against Kentucky. They did it against Oklahoma. What was the common denominator? They got to the free throw line. So maybe they can keep working that magic a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like they're also one of those teams that's just a 5 of 28 from 3 game away from getting beat by anybody by 15 or more. And, they just got blown out by 30 at Florida. You could say there's no shame in that, but it just wasn't a good performance. So, yeah, I mean, we laughed about it on Saturday, but like, yeah, I'm definitely down on Georgia right now. I want to see them turn things around offensively. Defense numbers, I know, are still great, but at a certain point, that's not going to be enough to get you to the NCAA tournament, and that's my worry right now. Is they're about to put themselves in a position to drop out of the mix here. So,
yeah, 3 of their losses in league play have been double digits. The one that was not was Arkansas.
They also, the Auburn one wasn't double digits.
Right. The Auburn was a 2-point game. Sorry, I forgot they lost 5, but yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about Missouri later on in the rankings and how much I love their recipe for success. A recipe in the other direction is being dead last in the league in assist rate and dead last in the league in points from threes. It's just the offense is not there.
Keep in mind too, Georgia's 14-6. 10 of their wins have come outside of the first 2 quads. Like 10 of their wins half their wins are quad 4, right? So it's like, I don't know. They're 2-6 in the quad 1 games, and I mean that would have been Kentucky and what?
St. John's, which will be a nice win, neutral floor.
Well,
sure, but this I think is where we, and again, I'm going to keep bringing this up, but it's like they beat St. John's over 2 months ago, and like that's just, they're not the same team right now that they were then, and so that's kind of how we have to weigh it, in my opinion, to be like, all right, they may have that win, but they're not where they were 2 months ago right now. So,
yeah, moving up. We have got Texas at 11, who continues to improve, honestly. 3 of their last 4, they've gotten Oklahoma, Mizzou, and A&M, 3 decent teams, while they dropped the road game at Florida. A lot of people are dropping road games at Florida. I mean, when you look at the 4 losses for Texas here, they lost at A&M and at Florida, and then they lost at home by a combined 9 points to Auburn and Tennessee. Took care of Oklahoma, Mizzou, and A&M. I think this is a Texas team that got probably the hardest first 4 or 5 games out of the gate. I think they handled it well, and I think they're bouncing back. Trey Johnson is doing Trey Johnson things. they're winning games without Kendall Weaver, without Arthur Kaluma. Texas is getting better, guys.
Well,
Yeah,
without
no-
even looking at,
Go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, without even looking at the schedule of anyone else, I think Texas has one of the best remaining schedules of anybody in the SEC. Because I think that, and I can't say this for everyone else, but I think all their road games are winnable. At Ole Miss, at LSU, at Vanderbilt, at South Carolina, at Arkansas, at Mississippi State. I'm not saying they're going to win all those, but those are not like Auburn's not in there, Tennessee's not in there, Florida's not. They've already got those out of the way. So, like, they still have to play Alabama, still have to play Kentucky, but those are both in Austin, and we've seen how good they've been there. I mean, really, like, right? Look at the 4 games they played in Austin. Lost by 5 to Auburn, lost by 4 to Tennessee, beat Missouri by 8, beat Texas A&M by 1. So I'm not going to sit here and act like they're not going to wind up beating one of these teams at home, like maybe an Alabama or a Kentucky, because I think they're totally capable of it. So this past week, we're going to look back and say this was the week that got Texas into the NCAA tournament. I truly believe that, because these were 2 signature wins for a team that had been searching for signature wins all season long. They finally got them, and I think they're turning it up a bit, and I really like where this team is headed right now. And the thing is, this is what we're talking about. The SEC is so good that they're 11th in our power rankings. If you're talking about if you just took a little bit of a stretch here, hey, I could move them up multiple spots here and be just fine with it, with the way they're playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is almost exactly what I was going to say. They do not play Auburn, Tennessee, Florida the rest of the way. They play Alabama. That's in Austin. Ken Pom has got them favored in 6 of their remaining 11 games outright.
Yep.
Yeah, they're probably looking into single-digit seed territory now, working up. I don't know, maybe they'll be like around a 9 right now, working up. Just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about if they're going to make it or not. So, big January there, last 2 weeks for Texas to get right on track. Speaking of a big January, maybe bigger than anyone else had, the Commodores, Vandy up at 10. Vandy picks up, speaking of 10, pick up another top 10 win. Knocked off Tennessee, now knocking off Kentucky. Sandwiched in between those 2 big wins was a road game at Alabama, where most teams are going to struggle. Winners of 3 of the last 4, guys. Vandy here sitting at 10.
Vandy has beaten 2 top 10 teams in a span of 7 days, and they're 16-4, and they are 10th in our 16-team power rankings.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I think it's time to start having, and we got a lot of ball to play. It's time to start having the Mark Byington Coach of the Year conversation. And there are different categories of Coaches of the Year, right? You've got like the Bruce Pearl category, where guy's been around a long time and built something and is now capitalizing on that. I think those things get underrated. Sometimes you have the category of coaches who had horrible years or 2 and then came back and had a great year, and they get Coach of the Year that way. Mark Byington is neither of those. He is the guy who took over somebody else's mess in year 1 at a place that is typically tough to get transfers in, rebuilt the entire roster, and now has Vanderbilt. I don't know what they'll probably be ranked in the AP poll today or close to it. They would probably be an 8 or a 9 seed if you picked the tournament today. I mean, I did not. If you had said the minute they fired Jerry Stackhouse that they were going to come anywhere close to that, I would have said you are nuts.
Well, you may have told us we were nuts this summer, because Max and I were, for a while there, we were all in on the Vandy hype train. We were like, hey, sleeper team.
And then you talked yourselves out of it. Yeah.
Well, yes.
Well, but
the
thing that I said all along is look at the experience that he has brought in across the roster. And it is starting to carry for them the way that it did for Carolina last year.
Well, I'd also say they're probably going to, if we go back, they're going to be one of the smallest teams to ever win as many SEC games as they have in this era, just based on, and that was the thing. We kept looking at the size and saying there's no way they can do this, right? But no, I mean, I think Coach of the Year right now is very simple. Like, it's a very simple race. It's Bruce Pearl, Dennis Gates, Mark Byington. And, Mark Pope would be in there somewhere, but I think with Kentucky losing a couple games here recently, he may move down that a little bit. But like to me, it's those three right now, in whatever combination you want to put them in. But I think, look, if Auburn keeps this up, Bruce Pearl is going to be the coach of the year, as he should.
Yeah.
But I think, of course, Gates and Byington and any other year would be easy choices.
Yeah.
But that's just the SEC this season. So
the thing that I like about them is they are getting better. Like we've said they've got some holes in their roster. They don't have a knockdown 3-point shooter. Tyler Nickel is starting to be that for them a little bit. We wondered, can Jason Edwards carry that offense at times against more talented teams? He ran up a lot of numbers against some bad teams out of conference. You just don't know how that looks until they play big boy teams. He's scoring. He's a hard contain for any defense right now. I think you've got to really like the way they're headed.
Yeah. I had him. I think I was the high man on Vanderbilt this week. I moved him up a spot higher, but it's just, what do you do with what this range we're about to get into? Which maybe it starts with Vanderbilt, but it's like, what do you do with these teams here in the next little bit? We're going to find out. So, because I think we all disagreed on this order, I believe, but we don't have to. This is where we get the jumbled mess of 7 through 9. I feel like every single week, it's the jumbled team. These three teams are always, what do we do with them? So.
Yeah, and let's just get into it. Let's get into the middle pack, whatever you want to call this group here. That's just been impossible to rank. Number 9, I believe this is their lowest ranking in a few weeks.
Uh-oh.
We have got
Carlos.
State.
Where are you at?
No.
Send the bat signal
somewhere.
What is going on here?
I admittedly I think I was the low man on Mississippi State, and that says something because I'm usually the opposite. Mississippi State, no doubt about it, is on a little bit of a slump here. Without Clary, we keep pulling on it. Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, past 2 wins have been overtime wins. A ball bounces one way, the other in 2 games in one possession. You're on an 0-5 losing streak with your only 2 wins being Vandy and South Carolina in SEC play. Lost to Kentucky at home, got to protect home court, lose by 22 at Auburn, lose by 12 at Tennessee, escape South Carolina. There's other teams that are doing better things.
Yeah. I mean, I think Chris and I were kind of on the same page with Mississippi State this week. I think we were certainly higher than you were on them. But again, it's like, and I know Carlos told me on Twitter yesterday, it's like he had we were having the debate about Missouri, and we were talking about the quad 1 wins and all that stuff, right? Like Mississippi State's 4-3 in quad 1, Missouri's 3-4. So, but like there is a lot more that goes into it than just that, just because there are so many other things that you have to weigh, because like we said, it is a power ranking for today. And, I keep saying I'm of the opinion that the recency, that the games that have been played more recent still have to carry a little bit more weight than games that were played a month or 2 ago now. And so I still think Mississippi State's fine. Again, that's where we may disagree a little bit, Max, on that, because, and I know like they have played the games they've won, they've both been overtime games, and they've managed to win those games, right? But then I look back, okay, 2-3 weeks ago they won at Vanderbilt. Now I'm like, well, look at the way teams are struggling to win there. And so like that win looks better, at least just in the more recent, range here over the past 20 days or whatever. But I'm telling you right now, this is why like I'm so interested in Mississippi State, because they get Alabama and Missouri at home this week. And like imagine if they win both of these games, what that does for them now. Because like you said, even if you're not so pleased with the way you've been playing, but if you're able to kind of keep some momentum here after the South Carolina, just sigh of relief. You win at South Carolina like everybody else is doing right now. Now you come back, you get 1 or 2 of these this week against these 2 teams who are, again, top 20 teams. I mean, Alabama's a top 5 team. So would be significant. And I think that's what Mississippi State has going for them. Not just these next 2, 3 of their next 4 at home. Alabama, Missouri, and Florida in that range. And they play at Georgia. They should be the favorite in that game, in my opinion. So I think they got some opportunity here, but I'm not going to push back too much on Max's thoughts that they haven't been playing great, and their consistency certainly hasn't been there. So you can weigh that right now. So,
well, they haven't been playing great, but there's about a points difference between State and the next two teams in the rankings, and what we're left to do, because they're virtually inseparable, is kind of react to whatever happened last. I will give you the good news scenario for Mississippi State. I think there's a level or two of performance above what that team is right now. Look, it's late January. What you're worried about is what your team playing like going into March. There's two things. We've hit on the Clary thing endlessly. I think that hurts them more than whatever his stats would show, because they have a need for what he gives badly. And Josh Hubbard has not had a good shooting game since the SEC opener. That's 6 in a row where he has not shot the ball like Josh Hubbard. Now, to me, that's sort of a good news, bad news thing. You need to get Hubbard going, but what that tells me is they are not playing at the level that they can for reasons that are explainable. And I do think that there is potential for this team to get a decent bit better because of that, Max.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, dealing with a little bit of a cold today. No question. No question about it. I mean, this is not everything here from top 9 down is you're looking at a top 5, top 6 seed. My thing was more just like, power rankings, not resume rankings, just power rankings. And when you watched, I watched that entire Mississippi State, South Carolina game. It was not a great game for Mississippi State. Cam Matthews didn't play well. Josh Hubbard's still shooting under 30% from 3 in SEC play. I think two things can be true at the same time. I think this is a team that's capable of going to a team like Memphis and blowing them out, and maybe not blowing them out, but really controlling, beating really good teams, going to Pitt or hosting Pitt and winning 90-57. But then also, losing 3 of the last 2 and having the 2 be close OT wins. I think that's just kind of the league we're in, where maybe a few weeks ago, Chris, we were talking like, this is a team that could get a 2 seed. This is a team that's like the first 3. Now it's like, I think they're more like a 5. So that's just a slight bump back, nothing crazy.
Well, look, hey, Alabama and Missouri at home this week. You get both of those, which they are capable of doing. You're right back in that 2 or 3 seed territory. Back. So, and by the way, Blake is fixing his camera. He's got a charging issue with it right now. So he'll be back in a minute. So we'll filibuster. But this is really the time, Max, when I start to really pay attention. And Blake has kind of come at it from the other way. He's sort of discounting what teams have done back in November and December, because it is a new tear. I wouldn't go quite as far as he does at times with that, but I do think, and I heard Bruce Pearl say it this week. He said it to Jeff Goodman and the Field of 68 guys. He said, now is when you start to really pay attention, because teams have scouted you and figured out what they can do to you. And so I think, to me, get State a full allotment of players, and I think having Clary back will take some pressure off Hubbard.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a State fan, don't pay a lot of attention to where you are right now. Pay attention to where you can go from here. And by the way, you're not in a bad place. You banked some good wins. You're a good team. We have seen, even with those things that are holding State back right now, there's still plenty of good there.
I agree. Okay, moving up to...
I'm back. I'm ready for this. Ready for this debate right here.
A team in a very similar spot, someone that we were real high on a few weeks ago. That's took a little bit of a step back. It's pretty much the same spot. Ole Miss.
Sorry.
Don't worry, Carlos. I'm here, pal, because I was the low man on Ole Miss this week. I tried to get them back there. Last week, I was trying every way in the world, using nefarious means to try to get Ole Miss higher in the rankings. This week, I tried everything to get them further down. So don't worry, Carlos. I got you. All right, Max, your thoughts on the Rebels here?
Oh, there's not much difference between these two teams. Two teams I really like, that I think are scrappy, that both are on a little bit of a rut with some home games to turn it around. I think these are like two in an extremely similar spot. Ole Miss loses by 1 and loses an OT in a 3-game losing streak. So yeah, it's 0-3, but if this is power rankings and you're watching it, it could have easily been 2-1. So there's not much difference between Mississippi State and Ole Miss in my mind right now. There's some guards that aren't shooting it as well as they were in the beginning of the year, and then they got to bounce back here at home. Very similar spots.
Yeah, the complaint is, and you're seeing it, that State beat Ole Miss head-to-head. That was also in Starkville in overtime. So it was a coin flip game, but I could see it. I think I had this one flip. But again, they are, these two and the next team to come are almost the same team. And how crazy is it that Ole Miss goes to Alabama, wins there, and then has lost the 3 games since? Again, that is this league.
Yeah, and I agree with, again, there's some of what Max is saying where I'm like, yes, like if you just watch them play, I mean, they're literally a couple possessions away from being like 5th in our rankings. And so that's just the way it works. But I actually did move Ole Miss lower than Vanderbilt this week because I'm like, and it's only one spot, right? We're talking 9 and 10 here. But again, if we're playing some of that game where it's like, okay, let's factor in the neutral court aspect right now. I mean, Commodore's been pretty good too. And I think what I looked at too with this, Ole Miss does have 4 SEC wins, right? And they've got probably one of the best wins of any team at Alabama. The other 3 wins are against Georgia, Arkansas, and LSU. And so they're fine. Like, you didn't lose to those teams, but it's like they're not jumping off the page. And so then I looked at a Vanderbilt. I'm like, well, they got 2 top 10 wins in the past week. And so, And then you look back at the non-conference. Yes, there is a difference, right? We kept saying Vanderbilt's non-conference schedule, not so great. Ole Miss still has good wins. And this is where Chris and I got in a debate last night. And it wasn't just about Ole Miss. It's about the value of a win over a certain team, right? So, like, we keep going back to Louisville. And it's like, well, hey, Ole Miss got that win at Louisville. And that right now looks like a great win, right? But again, like, I'm thinking that was pretty much 2 months ago. And Louisville is not the same team then than they are now. So are we rewarding teams for beating a team when they weren't very good, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, you beat that, sleeping giant, the Louisville Cardinals, when they were sitting there just, And so I think that's something where I have a tough time kind of just going with that. And so, yeah, like, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where you do have to look at the entire picture, but sometimes we're human and we're going to just, recency bias will play into it. And so, again, all these teams are jumbled together. There's no reason to spend much more time on this. Our rankings aren't judged by the NCAA tournament committee. And so, yeah, it's fine.
I won't spend much more time on it, but I need to push back a little bit. Louisville had just beaten West Virginia on a neutral floor and then lost a close one to Oklahoma when Oklahoma was not losing to anybody. Ole Miss went in there and just clocked Louisville, a 23-point win. Louisville then went and lost to Duke at home, which everybody's losing to Duke. I'm just saying, it wasn't like Louisville was awful at the time.
They had beaten Morehead State, Bellarmine, Winthrop, and Indiana up until that West Virginia game. Got beat by 22 at home against Tennessee, lost by 23 at home to Ole Miss, lost to Oklahoma, and yeah, they lost to Duke. But like, I just don't. That's all I'm saying. Like, sure, their record looked great. Who'd they beat up to that point? Okay, it's fine. But that's all. I'm not. You're not wrong here. I'm just pointing out, like, when you look at the full body of work, and we try to use for our power rankings on January 27th, if we're sitting here and the only argument is that we're holding that win that a team got in early December or late November as the deciding factor, teams change. And I think that's like, so I don't think you can weigh it the same. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Louisville's a bad team. They'll be in the top 25 again this week. Good for them. They're winning games in an ACC that is historically bad right now. But, I mean, that's my only point here. So.
Yeah. And you can dive into the head-to-head because there's a lot of pushback in the comments on the head-to-head. And Yeah, but there is a point there. I also think Ole Miss would probably be favored when they were at home, so it would probably be pretty even. You could debate these two teams forever.
Yeah.
We are going to
2.5 more weeks and we'll get it.
Yeah.
Should we
We're
turn this
going
into a
to
marathon?
move
Should we just
on.
make
No.
this a marathon where you debate these teams? Okay.
No.
Why not? That's what we do.
Well, we could because this is a team in almost the exact same spot. These three teams are just impossible to separate. Texas A&M at 7, in a very similar spot as well, have lost 3 of their last 5, with one of those wins being at home against LSU. They did grab the 1-point thriller, the Manio basket please shot at Ole Miss. These teams, I feel like all these teams just play each other and win by 1 point or it goes to overtime, and there's no way to separate them. A&M goes to Texas and loses on the Trey Johnson 3 and Tremont Mark layup. Incredible game. I think all 3 of these teams are in very similar spots here.
What were the stats exactly? Like, A&M trailed the entire game against Ole Miss until the Obaseki 3 at the end. I want to say that was 13 seconds left or something like that, and then led the entire game. Blew a 22-point lead where Trey Johnson hit a layup with, 5-6 seconds left, hit a short bank. Like, I wonder if a team has ever done that where, like, they almost barely led the entire game until almost the buzzer and then lost one the other way. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but it was just a weird – and we saw a lot of that in the SEC. Like, this week, as an aside, like, it felt like the thing you didn't want to do is either have a huge lead or be leading till almost the end. Like, the way that games flipped this week was just wild. And A&M was the centerpiece of 2 of those.
And I mean, every year the team that plays the wackiest games is A&M. Like, it happens every year.
Yeah.
So
That's
just
true.
a matter of when do they played, right? So, yeah, I think I had A&M in this spot too. I don't remember, but initially I had them actually at the bottom of these 3, with these 3 teams, Mississippi State and Ole Miss, because I just they are just a strange team. I wasn't impressed even with the LSU game. You know, you're pretty much not impressed the entire game against Ole Miss until the final minute. You know, and then they find a way to lose the Texas game. And you can say, well, yeah, they lost to Kentucky. They didn't have Wade Taylor and all that. Yeah, but, I mean, they've not been perfect with Wade Taylor either right now. And so they are kind of a strange team to rank. And I know, again, and we go back to it, but a lot of their resume certainly has been built so far in the non-conference, which is unusual because usually that's not the case for A&M. We're usually saying the opposite. So, yeah, I mean, I think that certainly, again, that holds some weight, but I don't know. The consistency that we said, they were the most consistent team this year, surprisingly, maybe in terms of inconsistency at times, but I don't really know what to expect from them game in and game out anymore. I don't. I think we've kind of hit that point in the season with A&M where would it shock any of us if they go lose at South Carolina on Saturday? Wouldn't me. But
they're kind of they're kind of like Kentucky, but in a different way. Like, on some nights you can see them play, and you're like, boy, they could take a quick exit. And A&M's reasons are offense, Kentucky's are defense. But then you look at the resume, and, like, it's impressive. They're 13 in BPI and resume right now. They've got 5 wins over teams. Ohio State's probably not going to make it, but they might, over teams that might make the tournament away from home. And Kentucky's like that. Kentucky's got an incredible resume in terms of big wins. But you watch them at certain times, and it just, you know, if you catch them on the wrong night, you're not super impressed. But they did this last year. They played very, very mediocre basketball and then flipped the switch, late February? And then they became this scoring juggernaut in the NCAA tournament where they couldn't score on the 3 of us for about 6 weeks. They were an odd team.
Yeah, I think between A&M, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State, in my head, those 3 teams have the most, like, power to move up 3-4 spots week by week. If one of them really, goes 0-2 in a week, they will clearly get dropped 3-4. They like A&M, they've got Oklahoma and South Carolina. If they drop both of those, they're probably back there at 12-13 next week, because you're not gonna put them in front of Vandy and Texas if they win their game. Like, what I'm trying to say is this little range of kind of 7 to you almost out to Texas at 11. It's really like you control your own destiny here, and it's pretty up in the air for this middle pack. Is there a pushback from you guys on that? That's where I'm at.
No.
Okay.
No. All right. Before we get into the top 6, and believe it or not, we've done most of our debate on the bottom half, because I don't think there is a lot of debate on the top half this week, at least in terms of our rankings, as we'll talk about. This was about as close to us being on the same page with the top 6 as it probably have been all season. All right. Zach, the super chat streak continues. $4.99. Zach's here. Shout out to Peyton joining in. Appreciates all the live action. Yeah, we go live all the time here these days. You know that. How about this? First time, long time. Jenkins checking in. Loves the channel almost as much as he loves BP. Well, you got a little taste of the Bruce Pearl interview last week.
Yep.
Hope you enjoyed that. Also gave us a $4.99 super chat. We appreciate that. And Blake jumping in, as always, $4.99 on the super chat. A&M played their best and won the game with Taylor on the bench. So, there you go. All right, moving on. Brian's calling his shot in the chat, I see. Let's see if he's right.
Number 6, Cats of Kentucky. They're a little bit injury bugged right now. A little bit, maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot of it. Dropped 2 in a row here. Last Saturday, the thriller against Alabama, our first watch along, 102-97. Then the week off, Andrew Carr doesn't play. Lamont Butler playing through a shoulder injury. Kirk Kriisa still injured. And you drop a road game at Vandy. Kentucky here sliding down a little bit here at 6.
Well, look, I mean, this can't be much of a surprise because, again, they're missing a key player. They have another key player who is banged up. Well, yeah, and they're missing Kirk Kriisa too. I forgot. Yeah, you're right. So sorry. Missing 2 key players. Another key player is banged up. And then let's call it what it is, right? Ken Palm's conference-only defensive numbers, all right? The difference between Kentucky and who is last, as we know, and the team that is second to last, which is Texas. Texas's number is 111.1. Kentucky's is 118.1. There is a difference of 7. If you go from, let's see, Texas all the way to Georgia, who is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Georgia's 9th. So from 9 to 15, the difference is 7 between those teams. They're all in that same range. But the difference between 15 and 16, Texas and Kentucky, is 7 itself. So that's just, Kentucky defensively has just not been good. I tried to hold out hope that it would not start this way for the Cats. As we know, I like to push the offense. But the defense just isn't there right now. And I think anybody who watches the games understands that, and it's a reason why they kind of are where they are, right? The defensive numbers just have not helped them be in the spot. And now, again, we talk about one of those kind of stretches in your schedule that are so meaningful. And this is why, for Kentucky, banking the good wins they banked, right? I mean, hey, their 3 SEC wins are pretty dang good so far. Florida, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M.
Yep.
But it's like now you go to Tennessee on Tuesday. You're 3-3 in the league. You're going to be the underdog there. Let's call it what it is. Of course, you turn around and get Arkansas on Saturday. But then, like, you start to get in some of those games where, like, okay, hey, Texas and Vanderbilt we thought would be sort of, okay, those are games we're certainly going to be favored, right? I don't know on February 15th if Kentucky's going to be favored at Texas. Then you get the rematch against Vanderbilt on February 19th. And so you keep going down the schedule now, and this is where that defense has to get better. There's no question about it, and they got to get healthier. Like, it's that combination. If they can do that, they're going to be fine. But those are 2 things that are certainly making a difference right now. So
we've talked about Kentucky's defense, but I'm going to have a little grace for them right now. I think we have underplayed their injuries a little bit. Mark Pope said that the back issue with Andrew Carr had really been bothering him for a long time. And the reason that I had been a little bit more concerned about that than you, listen to the way he phrased it this weekend. He said, he's been battling this a while. It is not improving. That's where I've been concerned there. But the Creasa injury might not have been as damaging if Butler were not playing through a hurt shoulder, which we didn't know until his dad tweeted out last night. You sent it to me, Max, or one of you did. So both of your point guards, one has not been there since December the 7th. The other one has been playing with the hurt shoulder. And by the way, if you think that didn't matter on Saturday, Lamont Butler, very uncharacteristically, had 6 turnovers. Team had 17. Vanderbilt had 5. That was the difference in that ball game. I'm just saying, if Kentucky gets health, I want to see Carr back, Butler back, and Creasa healthy, and then I will sort of refresh my judgment on them at that point.
Yeah, the concern with Carr's injury really flares up for me coming off a week off. If you have a full week off, you got your bye week, and you're still not good to go.
It's also a back injury. Back injuries are just tough.
But I don't think we underplayed it because we didn't know how significant it was. Like, how are we supposed to know? Like, I mean, Pope didn't say it till after the game.
Well,
what's that?
Anyway, I think I probably, when we talked about it Saturday, I had read the comments, I think, before you guys had.
No, but I mean, going into that game, how are we supposed to sort of gauge that
true.
He didn't say it till after the game? That's all I mean. Like, I don't think we necessarily underplayed it. I just think we had no idea. Like, we just didn't know.
That's fair.
So that's my only point. Is I would say we probably had a different expectation just because we didn't know it was as serious as certainly he revealed it to be. So yeah.
And when you look at Kentucky's big wins, because that's what that's kind of the story of their season is their big wins. That win against Duke, Carr goes for 17 and 7. He has 2 threes. When you look at the Clemson loss, he only had 5 points, didn't make a 2-pointer. You look at the Gonzaga win, Carr goes for 19 and 7. You look at the Florida win, Carr goes for 14 and 4, but has 5 assists, no turnovers. You look at the A&M and Mississippi State wins, has 13 points in each of those. Every time that Kentucky plays a good team and wins, Andrew Carr is a major factor. They haven't won a big game with him doing bad. So that's worrisome. And then you add on the Lamont Butler really playing through injury. And that's kind of, I teased kind of earlier in the show, like I'd be pulling on injuries. This was a team where I'm really just right now in this given week where they're going to play at Tennessee and home against Arkansas. I'm ranking them for this week. Worried without Carr and with Butler banged up and no Creasa. Later on down the year, when these guys get healthy, maybe a completely different story. But as of right now, I am concerned with the team in its current state.
Well, and Holly brought up my concern too. If he keeps playing through it, it's not going to heal. And what do you do at this point? Do you give Travis Perry 35 more minutes at the point? I mean, no offense to that kid, but it's an experienced athletic guards league right now, and that would be a bad spot to put him in. Good player, good qualities, legendary high school kid, but that's not the point you want to be at.
Injuries get a team every season, and in this season, It's like one of those where Max has said multiple times. It's just one injury can sort of change everything, and now it's multiple injuries, and so you're in the strongest the SEC's ever been, and you're trying to navigate now at 3-3, and your next game's at Tennessee. Right? And so, it's not an ideal situation, and that's why they've certainly slid down a bit here. So,
yeah, and when you think of like they've got their guys, Jackson, Kobe Brea. Even now, Ansley, that they're kind of their microwave guys. I feel like Lamont Butler and Andrew Carr serve a different purpose on this team. Different than, we need you to be a scorer. They do a little bit of everything else. I felt like Andrew Carr was kind of their best offensive weapon around the rim. And so you lose different angles of the whole team with those two guys being banged up. Okay. Moving on to the top five. Top five here. Number 5, I don't think it's any surprise. And that's crazy to say if you were talking to us like 3 months ago. No surprise this week. Missouri, top 5 in the SEC, coming off of a nice win they picked up at home over Ole Miss, coming off of the Texas loss. They are now winners of 5 of their last 6.
Yeah, I mean, again, people are going to point out Missouri's overall, the non-conference schedule, all this other stuff. The number of quad 1 wins. I get it, but also, as I've said many times, I think it just has to be how are you playing when the power rankings are compiled. And yes, they lost the game earlier in the week at Texas, but they made up for it by beating Ole Miss at home. So they kind of even out there. If that evens out, they still have the road win in Florida, right? I mean, even beating Vanderbilt right now is pretty good. They did that in the past couple weeks. Yes, they lost at Auburn, but I mean, again, everybody else has too. Yeah, I mean, you still look at Missouri's overall body of work, 16-4. Their losses at Memphis on night 1 of the season over 2 months ago, 2.5, almost 3 months ago now. Lost by 3 without Caleb Grill to Illinois. Lost at Auburn by 16. Lose at Texas by 8, who we said Texas is certainly one of the teams that are trending up right now. But they just keep, I mean, they're kind of holding their own sort of fortress in Columbia right now, right? I mean, they're still doing their thing at home, and we said how important that was because here's the thing, right? For Missouri, would it surprise any of us if Missouri slide down the rankings a little bit over the next few weeks? Because look at their schedule. At Mississippi State, at Tennessee, home against A&M, right? Those are 3 tough upcoming games. Now, they get the midweek off this week before they head to Starkville, but those are tough. So my thing is, hey, if you just win 1 in there, and maybe it's the home game, that will go a long way to keeping you kind of in this race here. But, that they are another team that it's a good thing they've done some of this work here because they're about to hit kind of a, week and a half stretch that's pretty brutal. So we'll see how they navigate it. But, yeah, I mean, right now it's hard not to like what this team's doing because, I mean, like we've said it many times, but it's Tamar Bates could go off at any time. Caleb Grill can go off at any time. Robinson can go off at any time. Like Mark Mitchell, like they've got so many guys who can just go off and be the dude on any given night. Not every team has that. Not every team has multiple of those kind of guys. And so, yeah, they're playing pretty well right now.
Well, and we just got off a discussion of a bunch of teams that are missing key players and how it is impacting them. Correct me if I'm wrong, Missouri is fully healthy. Am I missing anything here? You've got that. And we talked about all the really good players they have. They've also got a lot of really nice parts kind of as insurance. If you an Aiden Shaw, a Boateng, kids like that. I think their roster in terms of quality guys, 1 to 12 or 13, when you go to the bottom end of the roster, is really above what most teams even in this league have. Now, that doesn't usually come into play most times. Like, that's a weird way to judge a roster, but it's maybe not as weird once the injuries start taking the toll. I think Missouri's got a reserve tank of players that's nice to have in case those injuries hit, and right now they're not hitting. So I think that's the schedule is a concern, Blake, but you've got a little bit of a layer of protection there with that team that a lot of teams don't have right now.
Yeah, I mean, and they protected themselves with a 5-2 start. I mean, I think that's, like we said, that's why that game against Ole Miss was so big after the loss against Texas. So, yeah.
8th in the country right now in bench minutes, and they're not even using Anor Boateng or Marquise Warwick in games. Yep. I mean, those practices have to just be incredible. I haven't hit you guys with a pop quiz here. Here's a cool one. Okay, I'm not talking about national rank. I'm not talking about the rank. I'm talking about the actual number. KenPom's their adjusted efficiencies are numbers based on points per 100 possessions. That's what the numbers are. So right now, Missouri's offensive efficiency, it does rank 24th in the nation, but their points per 100 possessions right now is 119 points. Okay, 119. What was Missouri's points per possession number for 2 years ago with that top 10 offense that they had with the Kobe Brown and all that? And what was if they're 119 this year? What was it 2 years ago? Or you can give me a ballpark even if you want to.
116.
It was 118.3. It just goes to show how much better offense has gotten on a national scale. But guys, right now they're pacing the same amount of points per 100 possessions as that team was 2 years ago. They're outperforming them. So you want to talk about that Missouri offense from 2 years ago? It's pretty much here, and the defense is that much better also.
Max, you mentioned Warwick. He was on the floor all the time for Northern Kentucky. 90% of Northern Kentucky's minutes last year. 85% the year before, 78 the year before. And I know Northern Kentucky to Missouri, that's a big leap up. But he's not even playing a lot for them. He's got an offensive rating of 137. That's what I mean about them. They've got dudes in reserve that have not had to step up and play big roles, who are capable of performing at pretty good levels when they do.
Yep. Anything else? Or are we moving up? Moving up to number 4. We've got Tennessee. Tennessee with a nice, I thought it was a nice rebound week. They do drop the game at Auburn, but I thought it was to go in there. And the previous closest margin in Neville was like 16 against Missouri to open up SEC play. The previous closest margin, 16, and you go in there and lose by 2 on a last possession 3-ball. We were down on Tennessee for the road performances. We were down on them for their performance at Florida, knocked them for their performance at Vandy. But I thought they had a nice response last week. I think the defense is as good as ever. Number 1 in the nation right now, holding Mississippi State to 56, Auburn to 53. But I think there's still some warranted concerns about the level of consistency from the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I know it may have been Danny who said it in the chat earlier, but didn't think we gave Auburn enough credit defensively, Danny. But I mean, listen, if we didn't, then certainly Auburn played a role. I think we've said that multiple times. Yes, we talk about Auburn's offense, and the reason we talk about Auburn's offense is because they're historically great, or have been, maybe until that game. 53 points may knock you back a little bit in terms of the overall numbers, but they're still the number 1 offensive team, scoring 53 points, by the way, in the country. But yeah, like Auburn's a top 10 defensive team, and if we haven't given enough credit for that, shame on us. But
shame.
I think that with Tennessee, they, like we said, Max and I were a little down on Tennessee last week, and I still think there are some warranted concerns with them. But, I mean, you go in and lose at Auburn by a bucket. Come on, we can't move you down if you're going in and losing at Auburn by 2 points, given how dominant the Tigers have been. So they do move up here because of that. And let's not forget, they did just sort of take it to Mississippi State in the midweek, too. So, now, it wasn't a blowout, folks. 12-point win for Tennessee against Mississippi State. Don't classify it as a blowout. But they were handling them for a good portion of that game. Mississippi State never led. Tennessee was up 20 at one point with like 6 minutes to go. So, I think, again, it just, to me, it's just going to, like, Tennessee, I say they're a very matchup-based team, but, like, I feel like that only applies offensively, right? Defensively, I don't care who they're playing. They got a chance to do really well defensively, and that's why we said they got 3 straight home games coming up. Kentucky, Florida, Missouri. 3 really good offensive teams are about to go into to Knoxville, and maybe 2 or more of those could get completely shut down just based on the way Tennessee plays defense. And so they're so good at that. Let's not get stuck on this because we've already gone long today. But, it's like if Tennessee wins that game on Saturday, where are they at, right? I mean,
I know.
Where do we put them then? It's a 2-point game. But, by the way, Danny, shame, shame, shame. Yes, get out the bell. Shame, shame, shame. All right, Chris, your thoughts on the Vols here.
Blake, you and I are thinking a lot alike today because the point I was going to make
I'm out of here.
Is, I know
I'll see you.
It should freak you out.
Now, I'm not. I can't do this.
Right. If Tennessee gets one more stop or Ziegler hits a 3, the biggest national narrative today is look what Tennessee did. going to Auburn, winning at a place that nobody wins, holding a historically good offense to 53 points or whatever it was, which brings me to my next talking point here. In all of Rick Barnes's years at Tennessee, he came to Tennessee for the 2015-16 season. Where does this defense rank in not the rank, but the number of adjusted defensive efficiency per 100 possessions?
I would say
if you're
second
asking
best.
the question, I'm going to say it's either the best or second best.
It is the second best to the, what was it, the 2021-22 team, which gave up 86.4 points in adjusted defensive efficiency, which, well, that also ranked third in the country, believe it or not. I'm guessing Houston would be ahead of it. The number this year, 86.8, and Tennessee is, I don't remember if they lost the ranking, but again, number one in adjusted defensive efficiency in the country.
Yeah, and you mentioned the three offenses that Tennessee's got to play here at home: Kentucky, Mizzou, and Florida. All three of them are not projected to reach 70 points on KenPom. That's crazy. Yeah. Might be the only game they aren't projected to reach 70. The rest for all three of them. Okay.
Hold on. Before we have breaking news from Blake. 999 Super Chat. Per Jeff Goodman, the NCAA Tournament Committee will be using our power rankings this year.
Okay.
So that's breaking news. So, Carlos,
we got
to change these up. He was bringing up earlier about the Memphis win for Mississippi State. And Missouri did lose to them. So, Carlos, we apologize. If the committee is using our rankings now, per this breaking news, I'll try to slide Mississippi State up a couple spots. Although Carlos did say they're going to win both games this week, and we're going to move them to 13. So, come on, Carlos.
Carlos, come on.
Bring it in. Come on. Blame
we
Max.
Better friends.
All right, continue on.
Here we go. Top three. Gators. 3 in a row. Texas. South Carolina by 1 on the road. Snuck that one out. And then by 30. 89-59 against Georgia here on Saturday. Right now, KenPom's number 5 overall team, number 2 national offense. The Gators are rolling, guys.
Let's seriously think about this with Florida right now, okay? They lost by 6 points at Kentucky on January the 4th. They scored 100 and lost by 6. Just got Kentucky on the wrong day, couldn't get enough defensive stops. They lose by a point at home to Missouri. Now, Missouri did control that game, but they were right there with the chance, right? Yep. So, it's again, you play the what-if games like with these kind of teams. What if Florida's sitting there at 19-1 or 20-0 right now? You got Auburn and Florida duking it out at the top. So it just kind of shows you how good these teams in the top tier of the SEC have been this season. Like Max said, following up really good performances against Texas and Georgia. Yes, they almost lost to South Carolina, but at this point it's like, who hasn't almost lost to South Carolina? Alabama, the team that's coming up next. Spoiler alert. That's about it at this point. So, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, it's one of those things. So what else we say about the Gators? They've been fantastic overall and just a machine.
I ranked Florida at 3, but was I the only one debating moving Florida up to 2? Because I did think about it.
Oh, don't tempt me with a good time.
No, I thought about it, but let's go ahead and get to 2. We know what the conversation is going to be at 2.
Yeah.
We know where this conversation is going to go.
2 is Alabama.
It's thumbs up. Here we go. It's going to be about Mark Sears, and it's like what do you do with Alabama? Like, you don't know, like, how's this situation going to play out? I know we talked about it on Saturday, but still, in terms of the overall picture here, Alabama's won 3 in a row. They won at Kentucky. They beat a good Vanderbilt team at home by 16. They beat LSU. We all know the story of that game on Saturday. Was that enough for me to move Alabama down from the number 2 spot? No, it wasn't. So I left them there. I don't know how this thing's going to play out, the whole Sears thing, but as we said, Alabama's got a tough game on Wednesday at Mississippi State. So that's a big time showdown at the hump. between the Tide and the Bulldogs.
Real quick, not Mark Sears. I'm screwing up my point guards here. Walter Clayton has moved into the Ken Pom Player of the Year rankings. He is now number 10 in the individual player rankings. Walter Clayton is not getting a lot of love just because of how good everyone else around him has been, but Clayton has quietly, quite literally, been one of the best point guards in the nation. So just wanted to give our guy Walter Clayton some love there. We usually just expect him to do his thing, and then we end up talking about everybody else. So Clayton has been fantastic. Moving on to Alabama. Sorry, Chris, you were going to get some.
Well, I was just going to say that prompted me to check the SEC rankings at Ken Pom, where he's number 2 behind, of course, Janai Broome. All 5 guys on Ken Pom's All-SEC team right now, seniors. How weird is it to see that?
Yeah. Yeah, with Alabama, I was on Chase Robinson's radio show this morning, and he was asking me about Alabama, and I was like, everyone's just been talking about the, if you want to call it drama, the whole situation with the benching and the, Needles coming out after saying we were going with, defense and the guys we thought gave us the best chance for good defense and to get us a win. Think about this. They had a preseason All-American not play, basically, and have a bad game in the first half and then not play the entire second half of a game that was tied at halftime, and they still have the depth to go and win SEC games. I know it was LSU. They're, 14th in our power rankings? But still, they got the depth to have preseason All-Americans not show up and still win SEC games, similar to a team that's ranked at number 1.
Who's that? Who's number 1?
That would be the Fighting Tigers.
Oh, wow.
The Fighting Tigers of Auburn. No shock here, guys. 18-1. Tigers keep rolling. Got the midweek off. Got Janai Broome healthy. We thought he was going to get about 15 minutes. Ends up doubling that. More than doubling that. Speaking of doubling, he had a double-double. I don't know where I'm going with this. Auburn, number 1, yet again.
What happens if Chaney Johnson doesn't get in foul trouble early? Does Broome just stay on the bench for a while and just, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Bruce said he wasn't going to play him more than 20 minutes. Thought his 20 was where he was going to get, right? He winds up playing his normal allotment of minutes, which is just wild to think about. But Auburn is 11-1 in quad 1 games right now. We are not even to February, and they are 11-1. Absurd things. They've beaten 7 top 25 teams already. Again, we're not even to February. It's just what they're doing right now. The thing is, we always get to Auburn, and we just don't spend as much time on them as we do a lot of these other spots in the rankings. It's just because what else do we say at this point? The stats tell the story. The numbers are they're just ridiculous for what they're accomplishing this season. And so, they're just, and now their best players back. Look out, so bad for the Tigers here.
I'm going to give a shout out to someone who I'm guessing has never gotten a shout out on an SEC podcast. Maybe he has an Auburn podcast. And I don't know this guy from Adam. But Clark Pearson is Auburn's senior athletic trainer. And Clark Pearson is working wonders with this team because,
Chris,
every time I think
the medical field,
we should. My wife is.
You need to be the leader. We got to call Garth, the SEC injury report analyst. You're going to be the analyst just for the injury report. I want you talking to the trainers, all this stuff, the inside information. That's what we need from you.
Well, let me tell you my confidence in Clark Pearson right now. I'm convinced that Auburn could have a player lose a limb. They would take him in the locker room. They'd sew it back on. He'd be good for the second half at this point.
I'm not convinced of that.
That man is working miracles.
I'm not convinced of that. But
I think you've convinced me, Chris. I wasn't.
Thank you, Max.
You just convinced me.
You know what? If that's how you're going to proceed with players and injuries, then you're going to be having your medical license removed.
Only for Auburn.
You can't just sew limbs back on in the locker room. Let's all be honest here. That's just
not
not possible.
Do not doubt Clark Pearson, my man.
Can we get him on the show and ask him if he's ever sewn a limb back on? I don't think he has.
Baker was near death on the floor, and he comes back in the second half.
I don't think that. I think that was a little extreme there, the way you put it.
Maybe a little.
I could be wrong about that. Anyways, Max, you have anything that's where people are keeping their limbs to talk about?
I don't know what else to add on Auburn. It's the same story every week pretty much. They haven't lost. I don't know when they're going to. They're not going to be projected to. They might not.
Tricky game coming up on Saturday at Ole Miss. They go to LSU in midweek. I think they'll win that game. They should. Tricky game in an Ole Miss team. Feeling a little desperate right now are the Rebels. Just saying.
Yep.
Best chance for Auburn to lose outside of Alabama on the road. That would be the easy answer. But who is it? See if you can get it.
Well, I mean, I have to look at their schedule.
Do they play? Who are the physical?
Point, right?
Do they play Mississippi State or A&M?
It's one of those two teams.
What's A&M?
A&M March 4th in College Station. Auburn has a 67% chance to win, according to Ken Palm.
That'll have to be like a Hayden Hefner from 3 night or something. They'll need someone to hit a few threes or Wilcher or something to keep up with Auburn's offense. But that's a ways away.
And that will be, by the way, that'll be A&M's senior night. So circle that one.
Do we want to go ahead and make our picks?
Make our picks now? By the way, Tony weighing in with the Dr. Chris Beatrice Lee Esquire III. I think that's a great name. He should start putting that on his on the screen here every time he logs in. He should put that on the screen. All right, there you have it. Power rankings this week, and believe it or not, guys, I think the first time this has ever happened. Okay, hold on, let me find it. I've never seen this in the history of our rankings. Chris said, "Good rankings."
Wow,
he said they were good. Somebody said they were good this week. Now, Carlos, you don't see Carlos commenting. I'll tell you that. Tiers have been defined at this point. I agree with that. So, first time ever. All right, quick super chats. Mother Carol, $5. Love you guys and the chat members. Respect the devotion. Yep, have the intern clear the voicemail. That's it. Matthew, if you're out there, we got to get you clear the voicemail out. We got a lot of those.
Get on it.
And I just haven't had time to clear the voicemails. $2 super chat from Zach. Somebody say Chad Baker Mazzara. Yes, I think Chris may have said that. He did.
Got to get that in there.
All right. So what else? Is that it? Did I miss anything else? Where else we got? I think that's it. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a second.
Oh,
we're not done here just yet.
No,
we're not done here just yet.
What could we possibly need to do?
Well, there are plenty of things you could do on this fine Monday, but my suggestion is one thing you should do any day of the week.
Ooh.
Not shower.
Nope.
Not bathe.
Nope.
Blake, just tell us not to shower.
Yep.
Well, that should be priority number one. Priority number one should be moving because you got to get moving. You can move anywhere and take a shower. All right? So Sanders Logistics will get you wherever you need to go. That should be second on your priority list. First you move, then you shower. Because Sanders Logistics, your friends and mine, are just tremendous people. They're formerly known as Ted R. Sanders Moving, a leader among moving companies in Nashville, Tennessee, and the surrounding area. Their team of professional movers focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. You go be efficient, you go be hassle-free, you do it at an affordable price, then you take a shower. It's my order of my list each day, the to-do list. So whether you're moving across town or across the country, Sanders Logistics has you covered. Visit them at tedrsandersmoving.com. That's a quick one, but we're a little late today. We'll make it better next time.
This was about as smooth of a rankings as we've had. We had there's the clutter 7, 8, 9 clutter, and then there's a few others. But compared to other weeks, that was pretty smooth.
You set me up for that. Because can we go back to 15 and 16 for a second? Because I'd like to talk about Arkansas and South Carolina.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Hey, I'm on your side.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, what is happening here? He's usually the one getting on us for like spending too much time on the lower levels of the power rankings, and like this man would not drop it this morning.
It's a valid argument.
You step up for your squads right now, and you've been doubting Father Lamont Paris all season long.
Oh,
they're
come
close.
on.
They're close. They're gonna get there. They're gonna win a game. Whatever Max is doing over there.
That's how close they are.
Yeah, that's how close they are.
Thank you, Max.
Anyways, don't hate me, Arkansas fans, but I don't think it's a. I don't know, that's one of those.
I don't think
weird
they're
ones
here right now.
Well, I could tell another story. So
did you?
Right.
By the way, did you see the clip of the end of the game where he was getting booed?
Not surprising.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well,
all right.
Out of here.
Don't
Predictions
boo us.
coming. Kentucky, Tennessee prediction coming in a couple hours. Who we gonna pick? Coming up.
All right. For Max Barr and Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16's basketball power rankings. We got predictions coming up. We are working on baseball content. That is just around the corner. 2 weeks from Friday, the start of college baseball. We will have you covered there too. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Have a great day. You've been watching Southeastern 16.